Hi, I'm Dr. Brian Jerome, and I've been out collecting these feisty little creatures, the famous blue crab, that have been harvested from these waters for centuries.
At home along our coast, these and other crabs are prized for their great taste, and harvesting them is an important business in many coastal areas. Crabs are also arthropods, that huge and fascinating group of critters we'll explore during the next few minutes.
Turn on a light, and chances are you'll end up with bugs, especially here in the tropics. I'm using a lantern so I can collect some specimens. As you can see, I'm being pretty successful. Insects of all kinds are members of the Arthropoda, by far the largest of all the different animal phyla. The arthropods also include such very different critters as millipedes, rock-covering barnacles, and spiny lobsters. All of them, as different as they look, are arthropods. There are, in fact, more different kinds of arthropods on the planet than any other kind of animal. So far, scientists have discovered more than 1 million different kinds of arthropods, and they're still counting. With so many different kinds of critters involved, what is it that lets scientists group them all together as arthropods? What, for example, do such different-looking critters as these horseshoe crabs and this millipede have in common that makes them both arthropods? Well, as we're about to see, the answer involves 3 things.
I'm going to try to catch some shrimp so I can point out these 3 features to you. It's a great time to catch shrimp. The tide is high and the moon is full, so let's see how I do. Looks like I got some. Let me get one out here. Arthropods have a hard outer shell that we call an exoskeleton, and if you've ever eaten shrimp, you know that you have to peel off this shell before you eat them. Second thing that arthropods have is segmented body, and here you can see the tail, which is quite large on the shrimp, which is one of the segments. And the third feature that arthropods have is jointed appendages. And if you can look at the legs on this arthropod, you can see that they bend at the joints. And arthropods sometimes have many jointed appendages like antennas or claws. And these are the 3 features that all arthropods have, and it's what makes arthropods.
Now that we know what it takes to be an arthropod, let's take a closer look into the matter of exoskeletons. Take, for example, these busy little fiddler crabs. Not only do their exoskeletons support their bodies, their durable, tough shells also protect the fiddlers against predators, such as this hungry blue crab out hunting for a meal. In addition, exoskeletons also help arthropods in yet another way. They're largely watertight, and that helps to keep arthropods from drying out in the sun.
But as helpful as exoskeletons are to arthropods, they do cause a problem. They're hard, like a suit of armor.
And that means when arthropods, such as crabs, grow bigger, their old shells no longer fit.
Fortunately, however, nature has found a way around this problem. It's called molting, and crabs provide a great example of it. Most of the time, the crab's exoskeleton or shell is hard and rigid. But periodically, the crab's body chemistry changes. And here's the result. This is called a soft-shelled crab. Notice how soft and flexible its exoskeleton is.
While it's in this state, the crab replaces its old shell with a new and larger one. The new shell is soft to start, but it soon hardens just like the old one. It's by this ingenious process, molting, that arthropods grow bigger within exoskeletons. Scientists who study arthropods, such as this butterfly, divide them into a number of different groups. One of the most important of these groups contains such animals as crabs, barnacles, and their relatives pillbugs, and shrimp. All of them are members of the Crustacea, one of the most important arthropod groups.
While there are many different kinds, it's pretty easy to tell if an animal is a crustacean. I'll show you how with a nifty little animal that lives under rocks and streams like this one. And here's a crawfish. Crayfish look like little lobsters, and where they live gives us a clue that they're crustaceans. Most crustaceans are water lovers. That means that they either live in or near the water. In addition, crustaceans have a hard exoskeleton and 2 pairs of antennae. Now that we've introduced the crustaceans, let's move on to explore some other interesting arthropod groups.
And here's another important arthropod, a spider.
Spiders are part of the class of arthropods called arachnids.
There are many thousands of different spiders. All are great hunters. This one is wrapping a bug trapped in its web in an escape-proof envelope of silk thread. The spider will then bite the bug and feed on its body juices. Because they are such skillful hunters, spiders help us humans by eating huge numbers of harmful insects. Though there are many kinds, all spiders have the same basic body plan. First, they all have 4 pair or 8 legs. Here we see a spider using all hers to handle her catch. Secondly, spiders' bodies are made of 2 parts, a cephalothorax, or combined head and chest, and an abdomen. These characteristics are shared by all spiders and other arachnids such as harvestmen, ticks, scorpions, mites, and so-called horseshoe crabs, creatures from an ancient line more closely related to spiders than true crabs. But of all the many different arthropods, none fill a more important role than the insects. Found almost everywhere, the sheer number and variety of insects is staggering. Scientists have, in fact, counted more different kinds of insects than all other kinds of animals combined. There are so many insects around that it's estimated that there are 300 million of them on Earth for every one of us humans. With such a huge number and variety of creatures involved, how can one ever be sure just what is and what is not an insect?
Well, as it turns out, it's easy. All you need to do is follow the rule of 3s. The number 3 is key here. And I've brought along a model of a dragonfly to show you what I'm talking about. Insect bodies are divided to 3 parts: a head, a chest or thorax, and an abdomen. They also have 3 pairs of legs. So the next time you want to know if an animal is an insect or not, just remember the rules of 3s. 3 body parts and 3 pairs of legs. If an animal has that, you'll know that it's an insect.
As you can imagine, with the arthropods being such a huge group with so many different kinds of critters, it's no surprise that we humans have a lot of contact with many of them. Sometimes that's good for us, and sometimes it isn't. On the bad side of things, flies, mosquitoes, and other such arthropods spread numerous deadly diseases. And then there's farming. Some arthropods feed on the crops we grow, and that causes many farmers to use some very poisonous pesticides. Not only does this cost a lot, it can also poison the environment. But while it's true that some arthropods do cause problems, there's also a good side to the arthropod story. Shrimp, lobsters, and crabs, for example, are important foods. The bees, another very useful arthropod, help us by pollinating our flowers and crops, along with producing honey. Still other arthropods help us in many different ways. Ladybug beetles and spiders, for example, help us by eating huge numbers of insect pests, while the horseshoe crabs we saw earlier yield chemicals that are important in the making of many useful drugs.
Well, that wraps up our tour of the arthropods. Found almost everywhere, in their many different forms, Arthropods are some of the most fascinating animals with which we share the planet Earth. Now let's take a few minutes to answer some simple questions. They'll help to refresh your memory about some of the interesting animals that we've seen in this video. The directions are simple. Either check true or false, or fill in the blank with the correct word after you hear this tone. Good luck, and let's get started.
True or false? Most insects have 4 pairs of legs. True or false? All arachnids are harmful to humans. True or false? Only insects have exoskeletons. True or false? Insect bodies are divided into 3 main parts. Now let's do things a little differently. Instead of checking true or false, complete the following sentences with the correct words after you hear the tone. The largest class of arthropods are the... Arthropods have a segmented body, jointed appendages, and a protective... Spiders belong to the class of arthropods called... Most crustaceans live in or near the... Arthropods replace their exoskeleton by a process called... The 2 main parts of a spider's body are its abdomen and its... Well, that brings us to the end of this quiz and of our tour through the fascinating world of arthropods.